Welcome to the Varsity 845 Wrestling Podcast. I'm Sal Interdonato, Times Howard Record beat writer. I'm here with the top two coaches in the Section 9, Steve Fishbein of Monroe Woodbury and Kevin Gallagher of Minisink Valley. We're going to break down the season, and we're going to talk about the hot topics in wrestling. This is a different season for state wrestling across the state. There's some new weight classes this year. They're national weight classes, and we're gonna break those down real quick. We're gonna go over the new weight classes. New York State is going to keep the 96-pound weight class. That's going to be the lightest weight class. But then the newer weight classes are 106, 113, 120, 126, 132, 138, 145, 152, 160, 170, 182, 195, 220, and the heavyweight will stay at 285. I just wanted to talk to you guys about your thoughts on the new weight classes. I know it seems like they take away an upper weight class. They add an upper weight class, my fault, and they're taking away from the middleweights where a lot of teams have most of their wrestlers. So, Kevin, I just wanted to why don't you chime in on how the new weight classes?
Well, I agree with you. I think they are taken away, and especially I know at Minisink and in our area, I think we are predominantly more lower weights and middle weights, and to add an upper weight there where, traditionally is not as many numbers, at least at Minisink, it kind of hurts us a little bit, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they would do that. But I am glad they kept the lower weight in New York, which is 99, and didn't do away with that because, wrestling, we pride ourselves as a sport, a place for everyone. And if you start taking away that lower weight, then, you lose some kids that are just small. But I would have rather kept last year's weights, but, what are you going to do?
Before I talk about the weight classes, I just want to appreciate I do appreciate the compliment about Kevin and I being the top two coaches. However, Donnie Blaine, Jeff Quilty are Hall of Fame members. Paul Cummins is back coaching. Paul is one of the top coaches in the state as well. So, but once again, I think Kevin and I do appreciate the compliment. But I don't know if probably there's others out there that make an argument for the top two.
It's a great section for coaching, and you guys really are great with the kids. I mean, you keep kids in the sport, which at wrestling can be pretty tough. Steve, what do you think about the new weight class format there?
You know what? I'm a creature of habit, and I don't like change. But when it comes to it, you got to deal with it. And I think, as both of you guys said, with taking away from the middle and adding to the top, it seems to me, and almost everybody that I've talked about this, that everybody I talk to says the majority of their kids are through the middle, so it makes very little sense to them why they're taking a weight class out of the middle and they're adding one up top. I know with my team alone, I'm loaded from 38 to 160, and I'm a little thin up in the upper and to me, I mean, I'd rather I've lost the weight class there, so I'm gonna have to do my best to juggle my lineup and get all these kids as many varsity matches as possible. We are fortunate in the state of New York to have that lower weight class. I believe we're the only state of the 50 states to have a weight class that's lower than 106. You said 96. They actually adjusted it up to 99 pounds. But I mean, I think New York is very fortunate that we did not lose that lighter weight class. I know on my team alone, I probably have about 7 or 8 kids that probably, maybe not that, about 5 or 6 kids that probably, that'll wrestle in the 99-pound weight class this year. So I mean, if we lost that, and those kids would be too small for 106. They're not wrestling. So I think we're very fortunate to have that lighter weight class. And once again, I think it makes a lot more sense to have weight classes like they did through the middle every 5 pounds. But they took one out of the middle and they put another one up top. And as coaches, we're going to have to deal with it and do the best we can.
Yeah, it seems like that'll be an interesting storyline to follow during the season. Can't believe it's another wrestling season is here already. You guys started practice this week. Steve, you'll be wrestling in 2 weeks. Kevin, the Section 9 duels start in early December. Just talk about how you guys this first week of practice and what you guys are looking to accomplish. I mean, with only 2 weeks to go to your first tournament. It's got to be on the clock, so to speak.
Well, this year's a little different. We're starting a week later than we normally do. We usually start usually like around the 6th or 7th, and this year we started on the 14th. I mean, it's hard to believe. You got Thanksgiving's, is a week from tomorrow. So, and we have our first tournament in 2 weeks from Friday. So, gives us very little time to prepare. I'm doing the best I can. As a coaching staff, we're doing the best we can to try to get as much of our offense and defense in at that period of time. But this year, since we started a little bit later, we had the kids doing some extra preseason conditioning, running, lifting. Kids were going to clubs. So I think, at least from our team, I'm hoping that by time the competition rolls around, at least our varsity kids will be ready, because I think they were aware that we're going to have a shorter preseason, and they did a little bit more preparation. So yeah, I think as a coach and staff, the beginning of the season, I've actually heard Kevin say this a couple of times. I'd rather win in February as opposed to December, but you don't want to go out in December and look like a fool either.
Yeah. You have an extra week maybe to prepare for the Section 9 duels. How are you going about it?
Pretty much the same way. I think our kids did a good job preparing for the season with the extra time off. We had a good group of seniors that took charge and did some off-season stuff. So we do have a little extra time than Steve, but we are trying to move along as quick as we can, and then you got to throw certifications in there, which is always on the mind, and you got to take into consideration on kids trying to get into the right weight classes and things like that. So, but so far so good at Minnesink. We're working hard. We have good numbers. We're in the mid 50s. I know Steve's up near 70. So it can be a double-edged sword. You're great to have all those kids, but it slows things down a little bit, especially when you're against the clock. But I wouldn't trade it. But it does just slow things down a little bit.
I guess we'll dip into the season a little bit, and we'll talk about some of the returning wrestlers coming back to Section 9. And this might be the first year since I've been covering the sport where Section 9 does not have a wrestler who is returning that placed in the state in the previous season. So I think it could be actually making it for an interesting season. You don't really have that big stud wrestler at a weight class to a point, and it should make things interesting. I don't know how you guys feel. I mean, this is a good year for somebody to make a name for himself, pretty much.
Well, you know what? It seems like every year there's been like 1 or 2 weight classes where, well, that kid's a lock. There's nobody's beating him. He's 1, 2, 3 in the state, and and there's very few of those weight classes this year, which will make for a very good section tournament. And although we don't have, quote unquote, that stud wrestler coming back, there is a ton of good wrestlers that are in the section. In addition to that, there's a ton of good, very young kids coming through that are those future stars. So I'm sure Minnesink's got them. I know we have a couple. I know Warwick's got them. And just talking to other coaches, I know there's that next group of superstars are could be making a name for themselves, and hopefully they'll make a name for themselves this year. But Section 9 has been doing more than hold their own at the state level, and I got confidence in that we'll come through as a section.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have a lot of guys that have been there, and maybe sometimes you get up there and luck of the draw, and you meet some good kids at the wrong time, and and you get knocked out of the tournament without placing. That doesn't mean that they weren't right in the hunt and weren't a different year, a different weight class. Maybe they do place high. So we definitely have some quality kids coming back and that have been to the States a couple of times already. Across the section. So, we may not have the state place winners coming back, but we have some guys with state caliber wrestling, and I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, let's talk about a few of them coming back. You got Shane. Let's talk about Warwick. Last year was a banner year for Warwick. They won the Section 9 duels title. They had 8 section champions. They returned 6. You have Shane Connolly, a 4-time section champion, back as a senior. You have his wrestling partner Kyle Worsbicki back. He was a section champion last year. It looks like they could be the favorite in the section with the talent that they have coming back. And they have some younger wrestlers like a Tom Whiteman, who's Mitch Whiteman's brother. Mitch was a state champion for Warwick last year in the mix also. So they seem to be a pretty deep program. How do you guys really see in the section this year? Steve, I know you have a bunch of kids back. I talked to a couple coaches before we taped this, and they kind of think Warwick is the favorite with the talent that they have back. But like we said with the season, you may not know.
Well, Jeff Quilty, who is our Section 9 chairperson, always does a preseason ranking, and he uses those rankings to seed the Section 9 dual meet tournament, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. And Jeff's got a pretty good system. He's a math guy, and he comes up with good calculations. And by his figures, Warwick was number 1, and I think Monroe and Minnesink were somewhere in 2-3. Right now, Warwick's the team to beat. They have, I believe, 5 section champs coming back, and last year they went on an incredible run in the Section 9 tournament. Their kids all wrestled way above their heads, and they produced. So, with 5 section champs coming back, they're definitely the team to beat. But I'll tell you right now, it's a long season. A lot can happen between now and February. But no doubt, 100%. I don't think there's anybody who would disagree that right now Warwick's the team to beat.
Yeah, you have to say that. And it is a long season, but 5 returning champs and those, with, you got Cordino, Connolly, and Wisbicki, who've been around for a long time, Ginley. Those guys are quality kids, and those guys are, they can handle themselves at any level. And so, you're going to have to match up with them in the best we can, other teams. And, they're going to have their champs. And, the rest of us have to try and wrestle tough and beat the kids we can and maybe come up with a couple upsets.
I know, Kevin, you kind of pride your team on wrestling for 6 minutes in a match, and sometimes those dual meets are decided by those decisions where a kid stays off his back or he fights and fights and fights in a tough match. We may see a lot of those type of matches this year. As far as the guys who just go out there and pin a guy. We may see a lot of competitive matches and a lot of competitive dual meets this season.
Well, I think we will. You'll get a few pins here and there, but if you can hang tough and wrestle tough and push each other, and as long as you're still in it, you have a chance. And I think Steve's team is always in good shape, and we have battles, just physical battles, and I think our scores are usually low-scoring team scores because we don't pin each other. Because I think we have kind of the same type of philosophies and the same type of kids that just go out there and brawl and grind things out. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. And Cornwall does the same thing. There's a lot of tough kids and coaches that do a great job, and it's pretty exciting when you can look forward to certain matches every year that are going to be good. So I think it's going to be like that again.
Just a couple other returning section champions back. Johnny Stramiello from Pine Bush. He was the 96. He's a 2-time champ at 96 pounds. And Ethan Stanley, big guy, 285-pounder, senior from Saugerties, also returns at the Division I level. In Division II, 2 New Paltz wrestlers, Kason Clark and Eric Yanaskevich, also return. And then we also have Rondout this year moving from Division I to Division II. And you guys think that may strengthen Division II a little bit. Rondout has a couple solid wrestlers. John Hodis, who wrestled 119, comes to mind from last year. Ian Morris, Paul Somer. They have a core of 4 or 5 guys that have been around for a while.
For a really small school like Rondout, I don't know how many kids are in a graduating class. I know it's not that many. They do an outstanding job there. Every year, Rondout's got 4, 5, 6 kids that are legitimately tough kids, very good. And you know what? They have a tough time when they were competing at the D1s because they didn't have the depth. They couldn't fill, in every weight class, have that real quality kid. But they always have, every year, they have 5 or 6 kids that are, and especially at the D2 level, those kids can make a name for themselves at the state. So by Rondout going down to D2, I think that's going to raise the bar down there, and that should make our D2 teams, more competitive.
Yeah, there could be up to 14 Division II teams now in the section. Some teams will have 5 or 6. They won't. They might not fill the lineups, but just the fact that the Chester has established itself a little bit, and now you have Rondout going down. There are programs that are trying to get something going there. It's got to be good for the sport, I think.
Oh, I think so. I think it brings, more competition. So now you have some matchups with Onteora and Roundout Valley, who've always gone at it. And now those kids, I think it just, when they can see a little light at the end of the tunnel, maybe where that maybe they thought it was a little too deep in some Division I weights. Now it's just gonna. They see something that they can possibly get, and now they're going to work a little harder, and then the rest of the team's going to work a little harder, and now I think it just raises the level of round-out, and that'll force the other teams to raise their level.
Yeah.
I know in D1 with Valley Central and Monroe, when Steve was ranked number 1 in the state, that made all of us say, hey, we can. If they did it, not saying that if he can do it, anybody can do it, but that forced us to raise the bar, and I think Roundout down there is going to force the other D2s to raise the bar. So I think it's a great thing.
I know on the Aura they have kind of controlled Division II for the last couple of years, but they lost a couple really good seniors. C.J. Goldison was one of the top 135-pounders in the section last year. And Donnie Van Buren also was a multi-time section champion. So they're going to be probably rebuilding slightly in the Division II. So that should be pretty fun to watch. Now we can talk about the Division I. And you look at just they're calling it Division 1A. Steve, your division with Newburgh, Monroe, Kingston, Middletown, Pine Bush, Valley Central, and Warwick. Yourself in Warwick, but then those Pine Bush and Middletown programs have improved over the last couple of years. I think they developed some young wrestlers, and I think that those matches could be maybe a little bit more competitive this year. What have you seen improvement in those programs in the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, there's 7 teams in that division, and there's not one weak team in the bunch. I mean, there's not, every one of those teams are solid teams. Mm-hmm. So we can't go into any one of those dual meets to say, all right, we got an easy match, we could wrestle a couple of guys. No, every one is going to be a battle. And, like Kevin says before, I really enjoy, a good quality dual meet where you have 2 quality teams going at, banging heads with each other. Yeah. To me, that's why I enjoy the sport so much.
We don't mention the word parity in high school wrestling, do we? But the gap seems to be narrowing a little bit where the competition level is, getting a little bit closer. You look at Pine Bush, they have Johnny Stramiello back. Jordan Robles is a pretty solid wrestler. Chris Weston, I believe, was in a section final 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. There's guys back for their team that have a lot of experience. And then you look at Middletown, their upper weights are going to be they're going to be tough in the upper weights. Kirk Nelson is a really tough 171-pounder from last year. Yeah. They're going to be pretty. They usually have they have a lot of football players on their team usually a lot. So I think that and Kingston, Kingston always wrestles hard, no matter who they put on the mat. I guess it's the Phil Brown mentality, the Matt Urcioli mentality. They're nose to when they get to the mat, they're really tough. So that should be interesting to see.
Well, you're mentioning we have coaches in Section 9 that work as hard as anybody in the state anywhere, and the guys you mentioned, Phil and Urciolo and Jason Lichtenstein at Middletown. Not to mention all the other guys that some of them we mentioned earlier. They are. Everybody's raising the bar and they're working hard. So, the kids are doing extra work. The coaches are taking them places. And, it is. I think it's not that, our level is dropping. I think, the bottom is raising up a little bit, and it's tough. Every match is tough.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention Cornwall in this podcast. What Don Blaine has done for that program for years. And their guys mimic your guys. They're tough guys that don't want to get off the mat.
Oh man, I tell you, there's some matches that our guys know. It's Cornwall and Monroe that come to mind right off the bat. That other teams are very good, but their style's a little different. But Monroe and Cornwall and us, it's going to be a battle, and not that we don't have some guys that do flashy things too, but they're going to battle, and we're not going to give up points. We're going to fight every point. Our teams are in very good condition, I think, and and the 3 of us as coaches been around a little bit, and we know each other a little bit, and as Steve and I joked earlier, we go into the match saying, we're probably going to dislike each other for the next 2 hours, but. And it's fun, though. It's fun.
Yeah, and Cornwall returned seniors T.J. Kreider and Luke Roth, who went up to the state tournament last year. T.J. was a section champion 2 years ago at 103. So, they have some senior experience and leadership back. and then you just go through the section. I mean, there, like we talked about earlier, there's guys that are just maybe have been waiting for their chance.
Yeah.
Maybe a Colin Casey from Washingtonville, who's a senior 160 pounder, he's been waiting for his chance. You know, that we talked about Kirk Nelson from Middletown. We talked, Steve, your guy Tommy Murphy. You know, he knocked off some pretty tough guys last year. I mean, these are guys who it could be their season. I look at a guy like AJ Volker. I mean, another guy who had that. He's been in a section final before. I mean, there is some experience out there. And Port Jervis. I mean, we haven't mentioned Port Jervis yet. I mean, Dylan Muller is a tough wrestler at 135, 140 last year, and Brett Salzchuk can go on the mat too. So I mean, they may not have. Port Jervis in the past few seasons has been really, maybe not last year, but have really good upper weight classes, and now maybe they're getting some more interest in their program. So, just how do you see your team this year, Steve? We haven't really broken down your individual teams. How excited are you about this season?
Well, I'm very excited, but I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks. Right now, I feel like I had a pretty good product there, but once again, it's we've only had 3 days of practice, and so far the kids look really good. You know what? They've done a lot of work in the off season, and we're working real hard. And once again, I think one of the things that I like about the Section 9 duels is it's let you know where you stand, opposed to what you need to where you need to go to by the end of the season. So right now I think I got a pretty solid team. I mean. Our kids aren't going to be all in the weight classes that we want right now. It's early in the season, and once again, I care a lot more about what happens in February than I do in early December. But I think we have a solid team, but we'll find out. I mean, there's a good chance that we'll bump heads with Minnesink if we both advance to the semis, and we always look forward to wrestling Minnesink. To me, it's our kids step it up and their kids step it up, and it's always a great dual meet.
Yeah, and Kevin, we talked about before we taped about the senior class you lost with Kyle Diesel, Andrew Natalizio, Richard Dennison. I'm probably Andrew Iwanchu. I'm probably missing somebody. Glenn Ferrier. I mean, who are you looking for to step up as a senior and really take over where the leadership of those guys that passed?
Well, we have some good seniors that have been around. We have Anthony Sinella, who placed in the sections last year. He's looking good. He worked hard off season. And Frankie Mayo, another kid that's been around for a long time, another tough kid. He's a scrapper. He'll go. He'll probably bleed a lot too, but he goes. Nick Trulio Jr., Shane Hanlon, our heavyweight, who wrestled. He actually beat the section champ earlier in the year last year, so he's back. And then we have a very good group of Devin Fennell, another senior who's been in a lot matches, and he's, his matches are edge of your seat match. He's up, he's down. Then we got a very good group of freshmen. 3 guys placed in a section last year. It's 8th graders. They're back. So
some good lightweights. Minnesink's tough every year. Don't be fooled by they've lost 5 or 6 kids. Minnesink's they're always going to be one of the top teams. Always have been.
Yeah, and just wanted to mention we probably should mention the heavyweight weight class in Division 1 this year. We talked about it earlier with 3 of the top guys returning. You have Ethan Stanley, who won the section championship last year. You have Seth Stabel, who went to the state tournament last year. And you have Terrence Cheeks, who's just that guy that's really hard to move around and hard to score on. He's a little shorter guy compared to those 2 that we mentioned previously. But he's just, I believe last year was one of his, I think that was his varsity debut last year. And it was pretty good. So that competition at 285 looks interesting this year.
I think that might be the toughest weight class that we have coming back. And that's not usually typical of Section 9. It seems like Section 9 usually has, the good lighter weights for whatever reason. But, the kids that were in the section finals last year, the Saugerties kid and the Kingston kid, they were very impressive. Yeah. And the Newbrook kid, that took 3rd, as you said, tough to score on. Yeah. So you have 3 kids, and usually when you have 285 pounders that are
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 in the section. They're almost always seniors.
Yeah.
The fact that the top 3 kids are coming back at that weight class, I mean, I think all 3 of those kids could make a name for themselves at the state level.
Stobble Stanley have a ton of experience. I mean, and I know they do a lot of off-season wrestling and stuff like that. It should be pretty interesting. Are there any other? I know that we haven't had certifications yet, and it might be hard to place guys. But can you kind of maybe predict some other weights where it might be tough, or around where it might be tough this season?
Well, I guess it is kind of hard to tell where people are going to go. And when you got the Warwick middleweights coming back, Connolly and Wisbicki, they're. You're gonna may want to avoid those guys a little bit.
Yeah.
And Cordino, those guys are tough down there. I know Steve's got some good lightweights that are gonna match up with those guys, and then Kirk Nelson from Middletown, who's a tough kid. Him and Sinella may be going at it, and there's kids. There's gonna be good matches. There's gonna be kids coming that have, like you said earlier, just kind of been biding their time, waiting their turn, and now they've been doing a lot. The season's 3 months, off season's 9 months.
Yeah.
So you can get a lot better in 9 months, and I think that's what a lot of our section has been doing. So it should be interesting.
I just wanted to mention Valley Central because there was a time where Valley Central kind of was the top dog in the section. And,
one of them.
Yeah.
One of them.
And they the past couple years have been kind of a little bit of a rebuilding years for Valley Central. You guys get a read on if they may be on the way up a little bit?
You know what? I think he had 20 consecutive years where Valley Central was at least 1, 2, 3, or at worst 4th in the section.
Yeah.
I can't ever remember going from 2 years ago, going back to probably the late 80s where, I don't know what the exact numbers were. I know I coached there for a while, and it was Valley Central was either 1, 2, or 3, and maybe on a down year 4th, and last year I think they were 13th, which was a shock to everyone.
Yeah.
Shock. They had going back 2 years ago, I think they had 14 seniors in their starting lineup, and when those 14 kids graduated, for whatever reason, they had a very inexperienced team last year. Jeff Lewis came in with a bunch of freshmen, and I think Jeff did an outstanding job for what he could do, and I think Valley Central's going back in the right direction. Paul Cummins, in my mind, is one of the top coaches in the state, and Paul's coming back to be, I believe, Jeff's assistant, and I think just having Paul in the room is great news for Valley Central.
Yeah. I know there's some lighter weights at Valley Central, like a Jimmy Clark. There's some lighter weights there, Ryan Bolger, kids that are tough, and they have. It seems like it's hard when you lose those 14 guys a couple seasons ago because there's nobody getting matches for like 3 or 4 years because those guys were like 3 or 4 year starters.
Yeah.
The Ali Hassans of the world, the Cody Ruggierellos of the world. Those guys were around for a while, and now it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting to see how the section needs Valley Central to get to improve and hopefully get back up there, doesn't it?
They will. They will. It might take a year or two.
Yeah.
But I have got complete confidence that Valley Central will be back. To one of the top teams in the section. It would be very hard for me to believe that they would stay down on the lower end of the section. I just can't see that happening.
Well, wrestling is the sport at Valley Central, or was the sport at Valley Central. Hopefully, it still is, and maybe that they can get a little bit more kids out for the team, create some competition in practices, because you guys know in practices you have that competition where you have two guys going at each other at a pretty high level. It definitely it forces the team to get better,
No, absolutely. There's nothing better than competition.
Yeah.
To raise the level. And I think I agree. Valley Central will come around. They have a great community that backs wrestling. Jeff Lewis was a wrestler there, a very good wrestler.
Very good, yeah.
And there's kids in the Valley Central area that will be there, and they're going to be right in the hunt again before too long. I believe that.
I think we pretty much covered everything, guys. I appreciate you coming down. We'll have a print preview out to go along with this podcast, and look forward to it. Like we said, it should be a pretty interesting season this season, and we're looking forward to getting out there and covering some matches. So we'll sign off for the Varsity 845 Wrestling Podcast. I thank Steve Fishbein from Monroe Woodbury and Kevin Gallagher for stopping by and dropping some knowledge with us. And we'll see you soon at the mat.